I don't know about you, but I love starting off my day with eggs, sausage, and toast. I just tried Jones Dairy Farm's all-natural breakfast sausage, and it is delicious. They make premium crafted, all-natural meat, and 100% of products are made in the USA. And y'all, they have so many options: pork, chicken, turkey, or center-cut Canadian bacon. So check out their product finder on jonesdairyfarm.com to find out where to find Jones near you. At least 110 people are dead and another 170 are missing after last weekend's flash floods through central Texas. And from the Hill Country all the way here to Austin, folks are asking what went wrong. So today on CityCast Austin, I'm here with the most trusted and longest serving meteorologist in town, Jim Spencer, to get into it all. It's Thursday, July 10th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here with meteorologist Jim Spencer. Yes, that Jim Spencer. Hi, Jim Spencer. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, and my pleasure. Thank you.
So it has been a few days since the historic 4th of July floods. And at this point, more than 100 people have lost their lives. And everyone is asking, how did this happen? So can you give me a headline version of what happened?
Okay, headline bullet points. And there are a lot of nuance here and a lot of details that we could delve into. But
Right.
The headline bullet points: how did it happen? Number one, an incredible amount of rainfall fell in a very short period of time at the headwaters of the Guadalupe River that sent a massive flood wave of water, taking the river to major flood in far less than 1 hour at Hunt, Texas, right below where the both branches of the Guadalupe River come together, right in that vicinity. As a result of that massive rainfall, that wall of water rose so quickly that the people that weren't aware that they were under flash flood warning and were still sleeping, maybe unaware, maybe just could not move quickly enough to get those girls out. The flood wave continued down the river and then, of course, killed many, many more people than died in Camp Mystic downriver, in RV parks, campers along the river that were just having a nice 4th of July holiday weekend were suddenly being drowned by the rapidly rising river. But that's essentially what happened. And it's not the first time. It won't be the last time, unfortunately. Hopefully, it'll be the last time we ever see anything of this magnitude going forward. But, we saw almost the exact same scenario play out on the Blanco River above Wimberley in 2015, when about 13 people lost their lives at that point. There are some differences here, but that's essentially how it happened.
Now, flash flooding is something that I feel like folks aren't aware of unless they've experienced it. You know what I mean? Like I've had these conversations over the last couple of days with people that don't live here, and trying to get them to understand has been kind of difficult. But it's particularly common in this part of Texas. The winding rivers and limestone river bottoms are prone to flooding fast, right?
All of the above.
And like you said, rising more than 20 feet in 45 minutes is just insane. So what should people know about kind of how flash flooding happens?
My entire career, we've been preaching the dangers of flash flooding in Central Texas specifically. It is known as one of the most flash flood prone regions in the United States, actually.
That's
because
crazy.
We are in the Texas Hill Country. And if you try to dig a hole in your backyard out in the Hill Country, even around parts of the Austin metro area, you can't dig a hole more than that far before you hit rocks, right?
Right.
We live on limestone. And so when water hits that limestone, and it's like a sponge that has been completely submerged in water and it can't take anymore. It's just going to wash off. It's just going to run off. Then we have those hills out there. And wherever there are two hills, there is a valley in between. And if there's a road through there, we call that a low water crossing. So anywhere it rains, a flash flood is possible. But in our area, because of our terrain and the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of low water crossings in our area, and this is true around the Austin area, Spicewood Springs, for example.
Yeah.
1981, we had the horrible Memorial Day flash flood on Shoal Creek, right in the middle of the city, that killed 13 people, right in the middle of Austin, off Lamar Boulevard, Lamar and 10th and 11th and 12th Street. A creek that receives a whole lot of rainfall in a short period of time will swell to the point that it can wash you away. Even that much water flowing rapidly can sweep you off your feet. And a foot and a half of water can float your car and wash it downstream. And if you're in a car or a vehicle that has been floated by water, your chances of surviving that are pretty slim.
So you used your hand to show, like, it was essentially like half a foot.
Yeah.
That's 6 inches. 6 inches of water
Sweep you off your feet.
will sweep you off your feet. It's not a lot of water. And I
right.
think that we forget that sometimes. It don't take a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot for things to get very bad very quickly.
And this happens all the time. And think, I can make it through that. That's not very deep. Well, maybe they get halfway through the intersection and that road's gone.
Exactly.
That road's gone.
Exactly.
Boom, they're gone. Or they
Yeah.
get halfway through that long intersection where, it's not too deep yet, but it's rising, and then suddenly it's deep enough that their car floats down the stream. That happens over and over again in these situations, despite how much we preach the old mantra, turn around, don't drown. You don't take any chances with flash floods during flash flood warnings in Austin, Texas, or the Hill Country.
So I want to talk about the summer camps a little bit. So there are a lot of summer camps in this area, and now we're kind of learning that there are many located within the floodplain. So, I think a question is, should they have been there?
Right. Well, you think about that, and there are two schools of thought here. To be 100% safe, never get them down even anywhere near the floodplain. But, in reality, that's where the fun is. The
Right.
summer camps are going to be on the creeks. They're going to be on the rivers. And since 2002, there's not been a huge issue. Mystic Summer Camp's been there 100 years, all right?
Wow.
We've never seen anything like this. So I think the problem is not that we camp by the river. That's always going to happen. It's just always going to happen, okay? The problem is you've got to be able to have adequate warning should there be danger. 99% of the time, there's no problem having the kids camp on the river. It's fantastic. But that one time, for example, the morning of July 4, if you are not prepared with an evacuation plan and you do not receive warning and you are not ready to get those kids out of there at a moment's notice, then I'm sorry, that's negligence.
Right. So let's talk about this. So on Facebook, you pointed out some of the staffing gaps in our local National Weather Service. There's a huge public debate right now over whether that was the case. And so I want to hear your take from you. Why do you say they were?
Okay, I am still assimilating all this. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been depressed. I've been depressed since Friday morning. And I've got little nieces and nephews, and I can't even fathom what the families are going through right now that have even little girls who have not been recovered yet. It breaks my heart. And, everybody I know is kind of depressed right now about this. But it is really too early to identify too much when it comes to the National Weather Service, except for me to say this, okay? I am coming to a full-throated defense of my former counterparts and colleagues at the National Weather Service for the warnings that they issued early that morning. Now, yes, have there been budget cuts because of DOGE and whatever's going on in the federal government right now? Yes, there are positions unfilled. A very important warning coordination meteorologist position at the National Weather Service, a very important hydrologist position at our local National Weather Service in Austin, San Antonio, that was responsible for warnings Friday morning. There are 2 meteorologist positions unfilled. There is a technician position unfilled and a manager position. By my count, there are 6 positions currently open at that Weather
Wow.
Service office. I don't care if there's one person or 5 people in there that morning of July 4th. A flash flood warning was issued. A watch was issued 18 hours early, the afternoon of July 3rd.
Yeah. At like 1 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah, a watch, okay? That gives everybody heads up that this is possible, okay? A watch means something.
Yeah.
It's time to watch out.
Yeah.
And if I have
Yeah.
a summer camp or summer camps or an RV park along the Guadalupe River, I'm going to really be on heightened alert. But when a warning goes out at 1:15 a.m. and says flash flooding is imminent, this is a life-threatening situation, and I am in charge of hundreds of people, and there are multiple camps up and down the Guadalupe River, if I'm responsible for hundreds and hundreds of little kids and a warning hits my phone at 1:15 in the morning that says this is a life-threatening situation, I've got 2+ hours to take action to get them out of there. 2+ hours.
Yeah.
And that apparently didn't happen. So this is what has to be looked into. What did the camp officials know? Did somebody wake up? From what I'm hearing from the county judge is we didn't know this was coming.
Okay, so we actually have tape of that. So here's a clip from NBC News of a reporter talking to Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly.
Why weren't these camps evacuated?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Well, you're the judge. I mean, you're the top official here in this county. Why can't you answer that? There are kids missing. These camps were in harm's way. We knew this flood was coming.
We didn't know this flood was coming. Rest assured, no one knew this kind of flood was coming.
Well, did you not have an alert on your phone at 1 in the morning? Did your NOAA weather radio not sound at 1 something in the morning telling you there is a flash flood warning for your area? How did you not know? There was a flash flood watch in effect. You're responsible for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in RV parks in your county from a potential flash flood. How did you not we had no idea this was coming. It was unpredicted. That's BS. That's BS.
So for everybody listening, context is the first watch. The watch came at 1 p.m. on Thursday. And what
That's
I've
right.
learned is when you hear watch, it means just that. Watch out. This
Yep.
thing could be happening.
That's
and then
right.
at 1 a.m. on Friday, a straight up warning. This thing is imminent. And then a few hours later at 4 a.m., another warning came. And so
Elevating it to this is a flash flood emergency just shortly after 4, which means all hands on deck, blah, 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 blah. However, by the time that warning was issued, that river rise at Hunt, those little girls at Camp Mystic were either being washed away already or in the process of being washed away already.
that's the thing that I think that, because you brought this up and I think it's important for people to know. When you get that initial warning, how much time do you have until it's like, okay, we're in a flood situation? How much? You said 2 hours?
They had more than 2 hours warning before the flood wave hit Camp Mystic and claimed its first life. More than 2 hours warning from the first flash flood warning.
So then that begs the question, if the National Weather Service staff still put out the warnings like they were supposed to do, then is their staffing even an issue? Does that even come into play? It sounds as if, and this is a question, it sounds like they did exactly what they were supposed to do. So is staffing even something that needs to be considered in the conversation at this point? How would things have happened differently if there were more people, I guess is my question.
That is a great, great question, a question that should be being asked by everyone right now, and a question that really cuts to the heart of the issue when it comes to how the federal cuts and the federal hiring freeze and DOGE affected this particular event. Here is my take. Because that office has one hand tied behind their back right now with a shortage of staff members,
Yeah.
might the messaging have been different leading up to the event if those additional bodies would have been there? For example, the all-important warning coordination meteorologist, he took an early retirement because of these DOGE cuts back in April. That position has since been vacant. Had he been there and none of these cuts taken place, and the other meteorologists whose jobs have been eliminated or hiring freezes are in effect, might the messaging leading up to this event been different? Again, I don't blame this on the current
maybe.
personnel there, because they're working their butts off. They're working
Right.
extra shifts. They're working overtime to try to cover these gaps that have been forced upon them by the federal government. Could the messaging the day before been more, let's say, could they have rung alarm bells earlier and
Right.
maybe made calls out to the individual
Right.
camps? I don't know.
Right.
But again, this is not accusatory in saying things would have been different, because I think we'll never know if
Right.
things would have been different had there been more alarming messaging the afternoon before, or even that night when it became more apparent. Yikes, this could be a bad thing.
Yeah.
These decaying tropical systems have a notorious history of causing deadly flash floods in this very area. 1987, 1998. 2002, people died in all of those things,
Yeah.
all of those floods. The famous school bus being washed down the stream
Yes.
with all the school children on it.
remember that.
That was 1987. And yet there's still not a siren on the river.
Yeah.
And yet they still don't have somebody staying up all night long in sheriff's office dispatch if there's a flash flood watch on a holiday weekend.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. This is, in my opinion, what's inexcusable is what happened on the county level. All I keep hearing from the county judge is, we didn't know this was coming. We didn't have any warning, or the weather service didn't tell us to expect this type of rainfall, blah, 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 blah. You know what? There was a warning issued more than 2 hours before the first flood wave hit that little girl's camp at Camp Mystic. There was warning. Anybody that tells you there wasn't warning, that is not true. I can assure you that the meteorologist in that whole office, I feel for them so much, because I know how personally you take this kind of thing when this happens, but they have to take comfort in the fact that they did their job.
You know Jaws, but did you know the guy who wrote it worked for LBJ first? He helped shape a presidency, then he unleashed a shark that changed movie history. This Shark Month, the LBJ Presidential Library invites you into the world of Peter Benchley, author of Jaws, Ocean Advocate, and former White House insider. Discover how he went from writing speeches from President Johnson to writing Jaws, the blockbuster that changed the ocean forever. Explore the man behind the shark and his real-life fight to protect the seas. Celebrate Shark Month in style with From the White House to the Deep Ocean. It's more than an exhibit, it's a deep dive into legacy, fear, and redemption. Dare to explore at lbjlibrary.info/Jaws. When you live in Austin, when you live in Central Texas, you live in the Hill Country, sometimes you become a little desensitized to flash flood warnings. What responsibility do we have as citizens, the public, to take these warnings seriously? And then secondly, are cell phones the only way that we get these warnings? Or are there other ways that these warnings are sent?
No, and there is a way to get these warnings that we, at every severe weather talk I have done, and I have done hundreds, if not thousands over the years, as has Paul Ura.
Just so everybody knows, Paul Ura is the warning coordination meteorologist that took the early retirement buyout during the Doge cuts.
Right. I've attended many of his, and he always highlights the extreme danger of flash flooding in the Hill Country and the importance of everyone having a NOAA weather radio.
Now, I want everybody that's listening, in case you don't know, NOAA is NOAA, so National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Exactly.
That's the radio that we're talking about.
A weather radio. It is
a weather radio.
If you look up, if you Google what should be in my emergency kit, a weather radio, and that's what a weather radio is. You can hit the alert button, and it sits there quietly on your counter until a warning is issued, and then it'll sound a little alarm and alert you to it. And every family, every business, every school, everybody should have a weather radio. And especially if I have a summer camp, I'm going to have a chief counselor, camp director, whatever, that has a NOAA weather radio sitting next to my bedside turned on, because when the warning is issued, that NOAA weather radio sends off a siren that you cannot miss. It will wake you up and it will tell you what the warning is. In recent years, when they issue a flash flood warning from Austin San Antonio National Weather Service, they always, from what I understand now, they always include we call it a tag that will activate cell phones in the warning area. Have you ever been in the mall or maybe even in church and your phone suddenly went off with you didn't have anything to do with it? And it's like, and everybody else's phone around you went off, right?
Yeah.
That's what's supposed to have happened the other night in Kerr County in that warning area. Now, you're in a remote area of the Guadalupe River upstream from Kerrville. Did the cell service activate your cell phone? Is the NOAA weather radio signal good enough in the remote area of the Guadalupe River above Hunt, Texas, so that the warning signal over the airwaves even activated that NOAA weather radio? These are questions that have yet to be answered. And if they weren't, then I think there is no other solution other than revamping the technology. There is no other solution than sirens going up, at key points along the river and those sirens being activated. Because think about what happens. For example, down in Comfort, Texas, that's where the school bus got washed away and 10 kids and others were killed in 1987. They put in a warning siren there in Comfort when that happened. And you know what? This flood wave went through Comfort, Texas also the other night. Nobody died. Nobody died. We all get used to those. I hate to put it like this, but flash flood warnings are a dime a dozen, and sometimes we just turn them off and might not even check if we don't live in a really flood prone area. So it's kind of sometimes the cry wolf, syndrome. We get complacent in that situation where you and I live, around the city of Austin, that kind of thing. And we don't cross Old Spicewood Springs Road, you and me, very often. We don't hit a low water crossing when we're going to our HEB. We don't have to worry about that, right? Typically, although flash flooding can occur anywhere it rains, it's always important to stay alert. But if you are on the banks of the Guadalupe River, this is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
You've got to take a flash flood watch and a flash flood warning absolutely seriously. You are responsible for hundreds and hundreds of lives should the worst case be unfolding in that flash flood warning that morning. Now, I wasn't there. I don't know how it all unfolded necessarily. All I know is 2 hours of warning, and there were still kids near the river, close enough to the river, that they were swept away. And to me, that's inexcusable.
Yeah, it sounds like this is something we should have had all along.
I will tell you that in the mid 2010s, 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, and even after 2002 flood down in the Guadalupe River area, all of these claimed lives, by the way, there was a proposal voted down by the Kerrville city government to install warning sirens because of the cost.
Jeez.
Well, today that cost is looking like pretty negligent.
Right. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit. Now, all of the rainfall in the Hill Country, of course, then trickled down to the Austin area. And so, and we lost people here too. So
We did.
How was the response here? Like, where did the impact hit the hardest?
I know this firsthand because I'm not in the Austin area right now, but I feel like I have been working nonstop since Friday morning in the background, providing my team with as much institutional knowledge as I have, and with as much heads up as I could. And I know that in the early morning hours of July 5, this is 24 hours after the tragedy on the Guadalupe, we started seeing incredible rainfall up on the north shore of Lake Travis over Cow Creek and over Lago Vista. And we were watching it fall in real time, minute by minute. And I say I was watching it on the radar from a distance. The team back at KXAN in the Weather Center was also watching it. And I sent them a message early on that said, heads up, Cow Creek may go under warning any minute. And this could be an extremely dangerous flash flood. Minutes later, the National Weather Service issued a flash flood emergency because of the water falling on Cow Creek. That emergency included Big Sandy Creek and it extended into Cow Creek into Burnett County. All right, flash flood emergency. This should have triggered everyone's cell phone in those areas and all NOAA weather radios that were turned on. People get those weather radios sometimes and unplug them, turn them off, and put them in a drawer.
Yeah.
And so there was adequate warning. My guys, I was on the phone with them and texting them, and they were on the air issuing dire warnings in the early morning hours, midnight, 12:30, 1 a.m. Saturday morning, specifically mentioning you folks along Cow Creek, north shore of Lake Travis, down to Highway 71 across the lake, Big Sandy Creek up around Leander. So the National Weather Service issued the appropriate warning at the appropriate time as they monitored the rainfall. But what did we have? Again, we know at least 14 are dead, I believe, in Travis, Williamson, and Burnett County. I mean, were it not for this other disaster in Kerr County, we would be big national news right now in Williamson, Travis, and Burnett County. And I know a lot of those poor folks right now. I've been seeing the emails come to KXAN. I live at Big Sandy. Where are the crews? Where is the coverage here? We need help. This is such a vast disaster, including in our area, Cow Creek, Big Sandy Creek, across into Burnett County, up into Williamson County, that they're not getting the same attention right now in our own Austin metro area as Kerr County is, and they deserve help and they deserve resources as well. But were they asleep? Did they hear our warnings on KXAN early morning hours on July 5? They were probably sleeping.
Yeah.
Did their phone go off with the alert, or did they have their, you can turn your alerts off in your phone where those things never wake you up if you want to. Did they have a NOAA weather radio plugged in? If not, it could have been the same thing that happened the night before. The first thing they knew is they woke up because they felt water rising in their RV, their mobile home, and then they were swept away downstream. So again, it comes to personal responsibility, number one, in making sure that you have all the tools activated so that you can be alerted and having a plan to evacuate. But number two, county officials have to be on top of it and get out there with sirens blaring and saying, evacuate, evacuate. We think this creek is coming up rapidly. We know what happened on Cow Creek over history. I'm thinking back to 2007. I don't know if you remember this story, but two young boys from, I think it was Leander, had driven up to Marble Falls to visit their girlfriends. A huge rain bomb hit Marble Falls, 17 inches of rain in 6 hours.
Whoa.
As they tried to go back home and cross Highway 1431 outside of Lago Vista over Cow Creek. Their Jeep was swept up into a tree, and they were both drowned. And in fact, one of those boys, his body was never found. And the same is true in Wimberley in 2015. You might remember that family that was washed away on the banks of the Blanco River. I think maybe the father might have survived, but two little girls' bodies were never found after that tragedy.
Yeah. That's one of the hardest things about flash flooding is that there is a chance that you will never find your loved ones. And that is a really goddamn hard pill to swallow.
Well, and that's kind of what's irritating to me from people that, people have been criticizing me vociferously on social media for, can't you wait? The bodies aren't even recovered yet. Well, it's too soon. It's too soon to start talking about this. I'm sorry. You can read my post on Facebook. It's not too soon. If one of those little girls was my niece, or I was the parent of one of those little girls, I want answers right now. I don't want to wait. I want them right now. And so how long when should we then start looking into how this happened? What if a flash flood happens tomorrow? But we were waiting until we figured out how this happened, until all the bodies were recovered, which may never happen. That's what's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
Because I know families that don't want to wait. They want to know right now, how in the world did this happen?
And also, we do want to talk about it from the people that know what they're talking about. Like, I don't want to, I might not want to hear anything from just some random schmo on the street, but I do want to hear about things from meteorologists and scientists and people that were involved. Yeah, I do want all of that information. We should absolutely be talking about it from those people for sure. Now, you've been a meteorologist here for decades, and we've talked about all the former floods and all these lessons that we should have learned and all these ways that we could and probably are absolutely tweaking and learning and making things better and changing as much as we possibly can. We've already just said that it just makes you upset and furious because, like, there are just certain things that should not have happened. So with all of this experience, all of your knowledge, you know, do you ever have a time where you're like, yes, this is what we should be doing. This is how we got it right. You know what I mean? Or is it always, always, always an opportunity to tweak and do better next time?
Yeah, of course there's always the opportunity, but the problem is people's memories are short. You could ask somebody, hey, when was the last disaster on the Guadalupe River? You could ask 99 people in downtown Austin, Texas, and they would be like, I don't know. I don't remember. But, you know, they remember the video of 87 of the school bus floating away. They remember the floods of 98. They remember the floods of 2002, you know, if you remind them about it. So memories are short, and people tend to just, you know, kind of go along to get along and live, you know, in the moment and ignore the flash flood warnings again, you know, as they go along. So I think, yes, new technology, number one, I think is going to be critical. I can assure you after this, I mean, this is the worst flooding in the United States in 50 years, right? The most deadly flood in the United States in 50 years. I can assure you after this, there will be warning sirens or new technology up and down the Guadalupe River from the headwaters, you know, all the way down to Canyon Lake, I assure you. But it is unfathomable that it took this to make this happen. And I think in the near term, and with all the AI and all that coming around, we can put monitors that, as the river is rising, automatically send alarms downstream that geofence even certain areas that will trigger those weather sirens. I mean, it doesn't even have to be human. So this has to become automated. And with our a degree of technology available to us today, it could be entirely automated with some gauges along the way that automatically trigger these sirens. And I guarantee you, if there was a siren that had gone off at Camp Mystic specifically and Camp La Junta and on the other camps along the river, if a siren goes off in the middle of the night, I promise you,
everybody's getting up.
Everybody's up. They're on social media. Sirens are going off here. Sirens are going off here. And the word spreads like wildfire because that's a serious deal. That's just not your normal, it's a flash flood warning again.
We don't hear that every day. Yeah.
You don't hear a siren. Sirens mean something. This is a second a wave of alert that really means something. Even if it was well after the flash flood warning, once there was evidence of a flood wave that's 10 miles northwest of Hunt coming, if that siren had gone off, you can bet your bottom dollar those girls would have been being pulled to higher ground immediately.
Right. Jim, thank you so much for being here and talking to me about this and just breaking it all down for me. This has been fantastic.
I appreciate you focusing a spotlight on this whole issue from every angle and asking me to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Jim Spencer's work in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.